Hello, AP students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes for Chapter 6, Learning, Part 5, Issues with Punishment. So, problems with punishment. Well, punishment is an aversive stimulus that occurs after a response, diminishing the strength of that response. And this may be the opposite of reinforcement. Punishment is an aversive consequence used to weaken the behavior that follows it. And there are really two different kinds. One's probably a little more severe than the other, but positive punishment, or AKA just plain old punishment, is the application of adverse stimulus after a response. When you touch a hot plate, the painful consequence reduces the likelihood of repeating that behavior. Typically, positive punishment is not pleasant. Omission training, or sometimes known as negative punishment, is the removal of that appetitive stimulus after a response, usually meaning that you're taking away something, leading to a decrease in the behavior. So as a parent, taking away my teenager's car keys might be a way to punish by removing something away. Punishments must be administered consistently, and intermittent punishment is far less effective than punishment delivered after every undesired response. So there are, four kinds of consequences. We mentioned before the whole idea of positive and negative reinforcement, positive or appetitive. So you have with reinforcement, you get a bonus for positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, taking an aspirin to get rid of a headache. We're talking about the concept of punishment, the negative or adversive. So positive punishment, the punishment would be like getting a ticket when you're speeding with the hope that maybe you would speed less. Or negative punishment or omission training. Missing dinner leads to less staying out late because you're not going to be fed. You're taking the food away. So punishment and negative reinforcement, kind of where does that all play out? Punishment and negative reinforcement both involve unpleasant stimuli, but usually opposite effects on behavior. So punishment is used to decrease a behavior by reducing its probability of reoccurring. But negative reinforcement is like positive reinforcement. It always increases the response probability of occurring again. And hence, positive and negative might mean add or remove depending. When we talk about positive reinforcement and positive punishment, it always involves adding something to a stimulus. Negative reinforcement, negative punishment always involves withholding or removing. And so don't forget, when we talk about negative punishment, we're talking also about omission training. So the uses and abuses of punishment, our society relies heavily on punishment, and punishment produces an immediate change in behavior, which is reinforcing to the punisher, not so much the person who's being punished. The major reason why we use punishment, or the use of punishment, is so widespread. The punisher feels good while delivering the punishment and might be sensing that they are settling a score, or maybe even getting even, or making the other person pay, revenge. Why is punishment so difficult to use effectively? Well, the power of punishment to suppress behavior usually disappears when the threat of punishment is removed. Punishment sometimes triggers an escape or an aggression, fight or flight response, particularly among the person who's being punished. Punishment makes the learner apprehensive, which inhibits new learning and a better response. And punishment is often applied unequally. Even though that violates our standards of fair and equal treatment, in our country, boys are typically punished more than girls. Punishment should meet the following conditions. Punishment should be swift, should be consistently administered every time. Punishment should be limited in duration and intensity. meaning that the punishment should fit, as they call, the crime or the action. Punishment should have a clearly targeted, or should clearly targeted the behavior. Um, Punishment should be limited to the situation in which the response occurred. Punishment should give mixed messages to the punished person, such as, you're not permitted to hit others, but I'm allowed to hit you. And what's kind of interesting is the most effective punishment of all is usually what we call omission training, or negative, shouldn't be like negative reinforcement, but negative punishment. So like the loss of like certain privileges. So if a child is getting in trouble with a certain toy, the removal of the toy, or putting the person who is, maybe getting in trouble into timeout would be more effective. Thank you very much.